It's been decades since the Lake Shawnee amusement park buzzed with the laughter of children, but according to local legend, the park is still a playground for ghosts. The Southwest Virginia park was abandoned in 1966 after the accidental deaths of 2 of its young patrons, but it seems Lake Shawnee's haunted history reaches much further than that. The land the park sits on has a long and very bloody history. Then in the 1920s, a businessman purchased the site and developed it into an amusement park. He built a swing set, a Ferris wheel, and opened up the pond for swimming. Of course, amusement parks in the 20s weren't known for their safety. According to Visit West Virginia, the park's rides were responsible for a total of 6 deaths. It was shut down and left to rot, but its ghost children are still very well known.
You may not want to hear about this story after 10 p.m. Warning, there are some images here that could be pretty creepy, so this is my fair warning. But first, hi, I'm Stephanie, and if you like folklore, paranormal, and unsolved cases and anything strange, you come to the right place. Alright, so this story here is from a user who submitted their pictures to ghoststudy.com and said that this woman believes that she caught this demon entity in her bed, and she had been battling depression and even attempted suicide. Not sure the exact date on it, but someone said that this image looks like perhaps she might be mimicking or creating some hoax by twisting her hands around. I don't know, you let me know. Take a look at these images. Top and then the bottom, close up. I also heard that angels could also have several eyes, but I don't know.
The Driscoll in Austin, Texas, is known as one of the state's most haunted hotels. On the 2nd floor of the hotel in the bar, you'll find a women's bathroom, which is known to have a lot of paranormal activity. While using this bathroom, people have claimed to see pools of blood on the ground starting to seep underneath their stall doors. If you're inside the stall, be sure to not look up. Others have claimed to see a woman's head floating in this window.
Sentence horror stories that'll give you nightmares, part 2. My daughter's smiling face greeted me from the driveway as I returned home from work. Where's the rest of her? When I smiled, she did not smile back. Something is very wrong with his mirror. That jerk just gave me the middle finger. Your Honor, I swear, I don't know where the rest of the body is. I began tucking him into bed, and he tells me, "Daddy, check for monsters under my bed." I look underneath for his amusement, and see him. Another him, under the bed, staring back at me, quivering and whispering, "Daddy, there's someone on my bed."
This story is pretty disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. It comes from a police officer who made a post on Reddit. Dispatch received a call from an older couple saying there was an unknown man just standing in their backyard late one evening. He matched the description of a suspect who was recently involved in a gas station robbery just down the street about 2 hours previously. Several officers showed up and split into 2 groups on either side of the house. They approached the man with their weapons drawn. They saw the suspect and ordered him to get on the ground. The man ignored their commands and didn't move. As they approached him, they realized why he wasn't moving. The suspect, after robbing the gas station, took off on foot. He cut through the older couple's backyard to try to get away. When he went to hop the fence in the back, he slipped and impaled himself on a fence post. He couldn't pull himself off, and his body weight slowly drove him down the post. It entered from down below and went straight up through to his shoulder. He literally turned himself into a human scarecrow.
So Slender Man might be real. According to a forest ranger, he was patrolling the woods one night when he heard something weird in the distance. Thinking it might be a bear or something, he proceeded with caution but went towards the sound. Not a smart move. When he got towards the source of the sound, all of a sudden he got a shiver down his spine. That's when he felt something right behind him. He turned around and claims that he saw Slender Man standing right behind him. Or at least he said it was a tall, lanky figure and said it looked like Slender Man. If it's not Slender Man, then who could it be? What is this creature, weird thing that he saw? I don't know. It's terrifying. If you like this video and want to know more about Slendy, then check our link in the description below. Also, make sure you guys like and follow for the next part.
Time for another segment of Freak Deaths at Amusement Parks 2021 edition. Don't forget to check out my Amusement Park Death podcast episode, links in bio. Trigger warning, this first freak death took place this past June and is perhaps the scariest because it was invisible. A woman excitedly climbed aboard the Voyage coaster in Santa Claus, Indiana. Everything appeared to go swimmingly, but when her car arrived at the end of the track, she was unresponsive. EMTs were called in but were unable to rouse her. She was pronounced dead at the hospital. Turns out the extreme force of the coaster completely severed a vital artery. In the course of the couple-minute ride, she catastrophically bled out internally. She never had a chance. Sadly, this is the 7th death that I know of on this sort of next ride. I'm talking about the Raging River ride. This one transpired at Adventureland in Iowa. A family was seatbelted into their raft when it turned over, leaving all of them trapped upside down underwater. The parents watched as their children panicked and reached for them, but they couldn't do anything. Eventually, they were all pulled out. But 11-year-old Michael couldn't be revived with CPR. He drowned to death and his brother rushed to the hospital in critical condition.
One of San Antonio's biggest murder mysteries took place here at the Gunter Hotel. On February 8, 1965, a maid by the name Maria went to go check on room 636. When Maria entered the room, she was surprised to see a man standing there covered in blood. He then grabbed a small box and some bloody sheets and ran out the doors of the hotel. When police arrived on the scene, they found strands of blonde hair and women's clothing in the room. There were also trails of blood back and forth from the bedroom to the bathroom, where police say the woman was butchered. Within days, police tracked down Walter Emmerich, who was responsible for this murder. Knowing he was caught, Walter then took his own life. To this day, we don't know the identity of the woman or the location of her body.
This scary story comes from Cam Comedy on Reddit. Mommy told me to never go into the basement, but I wanted to see what was making that noise. It kind of sounded like a puppy, and I wanted to see that puppy. So I opened the basement door and tiptoed down a bit. I didn't see a puppy. Then Mommy yanked me out of the basement and yelled at me. Mommy had never yelled at me before, and it made me sad, and I cried. Then she told me to never go into the basement again, and she gave me a cookie. That made me feel better, so I didn't ask her why the boy in the basement was making noises like a puppy, or why he had no hands or feet.
Parents of TikTok, what is the creepiest thing your kid has ever said to you?
Not my kid, but when I worked at a preschool 3 years ago, this is what happened. I had 2-year-olds. This preschool was in a pretty old church. I mean, it's not like historically old, but it wasn't new either. So this was the beginning of the year. One of my kids was going to the bathroom. She was closed in her little bathroom stall, and I hear her talking to someone. Like, she'll talk, wait for a response, talk again, wait for a response, talk again. When she came out, I was like, hey girl, who are you talking to? She's like, the man that tickles me. I'm sorry, what? But of course she was 2, so I was like, okay girl, whatever, let's move on. And a few weeks later, I took a couple kids in from the playground so that they could all go to the bathroom at the same time. I was hanging out with one of my little dudes, just the 2 of us while we waited for everyone else to finish. And he just started talking to me, telling me about the man that tickles him and how he didn't feel like talking to him that day. At that point, I was like, I'm gonna look into this because I'm scared. As it turns out, a nice man was replacing the roof, fell off and died at the church.
Here in Austin, Texas, a guest by the name of Jack checked into the Omni Hotel, but unfortunately, he never checked out. Jack was a salesman traveling from state to state, trying to close his next deal. He was at a very low point in his life, struggling just to make ends meet. While in his room here at the Omni, Jack received an upsetting phone call from his wife. After years of neglect, she had moved on and is filing for divorce. In a depressive state, Jack began excessively drinking, and he then jumped from the balcony of his hotel room. Afterwards, housekeeping staff refused to go into the room for 3 months. And now, even when the room is vacant, people can hear sounds and furniture moving throughout the night.
In the waterbed.
Have you heard the urban legend? I told you so. Alan Dirtz was devastated when his wife left him for another man. Instead of getting mad, he decided to get even. 2 days later, the sheriff's department received a handwritten letter from Dirtz stating his intent to sneak into the other man's bedroom at night and slit the throats of his wife and her lover. Dirtz would never be caught, he bragged, because he would kill himself first. The cops raced over to the boyfriend's home and were relieved to find Dirtz's wife and her lover alive. The two knew nothing about the threat and were visibly shaken by the news. The cops converged on the old Dirtz place, but no one answered the door. Mrs. Dirtz gave permission for a search, and they found her husband in the basement, hanging dead from the rafters. The scandal and suicide became the talk of the town, but at least a double murder was averted, or so they thought. A year later, Mrs. Dirtz became Mrs. Edwards. It was a private ceremony with only close friends attending. So everyone was puzzled when a gift signed by Alan was found in the pile. The atmosphere soured as it was opened. It contained an expensive butcher knife. The next morning, the newlyweds were found dead in bed. Someone had sneaked inside and slit their throats while they slept. The only evidence was a note that read, "I told you so." The handwriting matched the letter sent by Dirtz a year earlier.
How could you not be a place that has a name like this and not have any weird stories? There are some, so let's get into it. So in 1946, the Van Alst family just wanted to go have some fun, but it ended up being anything but. 8-year-old Catherine Van Alst was just playing with her brothers, having a good time. It started out that way, but then she kind of went up and around, by the dam, and that is when the dad lost sight of her. So he's looking around for his daughter for a while. Other people around start to engage. They're looking around for like an hour. Realizing that it was a very serious situation, they finally alerted officials and began a very massive search for this girl. So a group of searchers would go on to say that they walked past this cave, and who should happen to waltz on out of the cave? Catherine did. What? She did! So it was about 7 air miles away, and they estimated about 30 zigzagging miles. This girl was like Daniel Booning it? It had been like 6 days that this girl was missing. She was still in her swimsuit. And when they had asked her about what had happened, really all she could recall was laying on warm grass and that she woke up in this cave. Now I like to think, I'm an optimist if anything, that there are good things out in the woods as well. But y'all know.
I moved into an old farmhouse in October 2015. It had been kept current until 1989, right down to the burgundy green hearts and apple borders in the middle of the walls. The house sits on a couple of acres. The closest neighbor is a walk away. Great trees, great bushes, love it. But lately, I've noticed weird things. Like how none of the closets have doors. Or how I wake suddenly just as I'm starting to drift off to sleep. How tired I am even though I'm in bed by 9 p.m. and can barely get out of bed at 7 a.m. The other really strange thing I've noticed is both my cats have disappeared. And none of the coyotes I hear at night come near the house, even though I've left the garbage bag outside accidentally. But the biggest thing I've noticed lately is how the hatch to my attic seems to always be open, though it used to be nailed shut.
That one was very confusing. I mean, parts of me want to say that he's already dead. But then I also notice, when I looked again, that there are little ghosts throughout the video. If you watch very carefully, you will see them in the corners, or the hands over his face when he tries to sleep. I don't know what to tell you, but I do think that that was creepy. I just don't know what exactly happened. I give it about a 3 on the scare meter. It was a good story though. I would really like to know what you guys think happened. Comment your thoughts below. Let's watch something scary.